Alright guys, Wyatt here, and welcome back to Lab 3 of our 12-week Java Lab series. This week what we're going to be working on is we're going to practice using a scanner, so reading in input from the user. We're going to build a constructor, which means we're going to make some objects. We're going to create instance variables to do so. We're going to learn about getter and setter methods and practice calling methods. Alright, so without further ado, let's see what we're going to be doing today. Part A. Wyatt is starting a tomato plant farm that holds 3 gardens. So there's one big farm and there's 3 gardens there. Alright, tomato plants need 9 square feet of space to grow properly. So for example, a 3x6 plot of land can house 2 tomato plants. A 9x6 foot of land can house 6 plants. The tomato plant farm has 3 separate areas designated for growing different types of tomatoes. Each tomato plant still needs 9 square feet of space. Alright? What we're going to do, create a class called garden. Prompt the user to enter the length and width of each plot of, have them enter the length and width for the garden. And from there we're going to calculate how many tomato plants can grow on that size. So in addition to above, what we're going to need, we're going to create a constructor. We don't actually have to, we can have it done this way, where it has a length and width. Or what we're also, like we talked about before, we're going to have setter methods. So the setter methods are going to be set width and set length. Setter methods are something that you guys will get used to in Java, and essentially what they do is they set the instance variables that we're going to use for that object. So what that means is if a garden object has a length and a width, our setter methods are going to be used to set the length and set the width for each object. A getter method, your getter methods return something. So this is going to return the width. Our get length is going to return the length, and both these are going to return as, it doesn't say what type, but we'll figure that out later. We're going to create a method called getArea that calculates and returns the area of the plot as a double. So maybe all these can be doubles. A method tomatoes that calculates how many plants can grow on a plot of land. This is going to return this number as an integer, so a whole number, and that's good. Alright, so what we're going to need, tomatoes, to figure out how much land we got to figure out, or how many tomatoes, we got to know how big the space is, so we'll call our getArea method. And finally, our main method is going to call tomatoes on each of the 3 garden objects, calculating the total number of tomatoes that Wyatt's farm can grow. Alright, so let's get started. What we're going to do, we got VS Code open. I got Lab 3, a folder created. Alright, we're going to create everything in there. We remember our shortcuts, Command-Shift-P, create a Java project. No build tools here. We're going to do everything in this project, and the name we said we're going to go with is garden. Alright, so first things first, we're going to create a class called garden. Alright, and that means we got to rename this to garden as well. Alright, so let's see here. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the instance variables for our garden object. Alright, so it's going to have a length and a width. Alright, so our garden object is going to have a length and a width. And here's our constructor. So as it mentions above, a constructor create a garden object, and this one wants us to have a length and width right here, and we'll do that. So let's see here. We're going to create two constructors. We're going to create one that has the user enter length and width, and we're going to have another one that is just blank and the user can set the length and width later. We'll do the first one now. So public garden, and like it has no parameters. So that one is just going to be created later, and then the other one we're going to have public garden, and we're going to have this one accept a length and width, public double width. Alright, and this one is to follow the sheet above, and what we're saying is this length, i.e. the object's length, is going to equal what the parameter is. And same goes for the width. So this dot width, so the object's width is going to be whatever number is passed in as the parameter that is labeled width. We'll do one is actually just W so you can see the difference. Break it down a little bit more clearly. Alright, so we got two constructors. We're going to use one at a time. Alright. So next what we need is we want to create, our garden objects. Just to help show you guys how it works, we're going to do it two ways. So what we said first, let's just say for example, we want to say we're going to create a garden object. So again, to create an object in Java, you say the object type, you give it a name, you say equals new, and here it gives the object option to say which constructor do we want to use. This one we'll just say is 10 by 9. So we're going to use the constructor that takes in our two parameters, the length and width. Alright, but that's just to show us how to create a garden object again. Kind of the basic way, the standard way. Another way that we're going to do it is we're going to use setters. So each method again that we create in Java is going to be able to be used on that object type. So here we're in the garden class, so all these methods that we call or that we create in here can be called on that method. So what we're going to say is we want to create setter methods to set our length and width. So what we're going to say is public void set width, and what we're going to say is we're going to pass in we're going to need a scanner method here. Scan equals new scanner system.in. Alright, it imports a scanner for us when we say that. What we're going to say now is, what we're going to do, we're going to prompt the user to enter a number system. So we're going to print out something, system out dot print line, enter the, alright. So what we're going to say now is we need to create a double object that's going to represent our width. Double W equals scan dot next double, and that's what we say to read in the next double. And we're going to say this dot width equals W. Alright, so now what this line is saying is this method is going to be called on a garden object. So for example, let's say we have a new garden object down here called garden2 equals new garden, and right now it doesn't have a width and it doesn't have a length. So to set the width, what we're going to say is garden2, and now because we have this set width method created, we can say set width, and now it's going to set our width. What we're going to do next, similar to set width, we're going to set the height or set the length. Alright, so set length, and the length, you can say length, this dot length. So the object's length is going to equal the double that was just read in. And now garden2, we're going to say set length. Alright, so now garden2 also has a width and length set. That's good. And let's go ahead and before we create the get area method, we're going to need some getter methods. Alright, so to practice creating getter methods, similar to, they pose a similar purpose as our setter methods, but getter methods are going to be a little bit different. Our setter methods are going to return nothing. So here they're not returning anything, we're setting something. What's going to be different about our getter methods is they're going to set, they're going to return our length and our width. So if they're going to return that information for us, we have to say what type of variable they're going to return. Here they're returning a double because our length and width are double. So get width, and what we're going to say is return this dot width. So again, because this method is going to be called on a garden object, that garden object is already going to know what its width is. So when we say get width, it's going to return that width for us. Similarly, what we're going to say for get length, return this dot length. Alright, so to show you how it works, what we'll do just to make sure everything's working properly is we'll say system.out.print. We're going to say garden2 dot get length. So here we'll just do it to make sure it's working. The length of garden2 is this, and let's kind of run it to see what we're working with so far, make sure everything's looking the way we're expecting it to. Enter the width, we'll say 9. Enter the length, we'll say 10. The length of garden2 is 10. Alright, nice. So that worked how we expected it to. Good. Alright, so now what we need to do is create a method called getArea that calculates and returns the plot as a double. Alright, so essentially with our get width and get length already set, what we're going to say is we want a new method called getArea, which we're going to use to return the area of the plot of land we have. So we'll say public, and it says return it as a double. getArea. So we'll say double area. Alright. So area equals this dot get length times this dot get width. And again, get area is going to be called on an object for us. Return area. So get area is going to be called on a garden object that has a length and it has a width. So we're going to call the length and width getter methods for us to figure out what the size is, and then we're going to calculate the size and return that area. Alright, now that we have the area, next thing that we're going to want to do is create a tomatoes method that calculates how many tomatoes can be grown on that plot of land. And as we talked about before, the amount of tomatoes that can grow on that plot of land is going to be the size divided by 9, because we need 9 square feet to grow a tomato plant. Alright, so calculate total number of tomatoes that can grow. Alright, and we said this is going to return an integer. Public int tomatoes. Alright, so what we need to do here is we have our get area method. So let's say int tomato total toms. So this is going to be the total tomatoes that we can grow equals 0 to start. And what we're going to say is total toms equals get area divided by 9, right? And we're going to have to cast this to an integer, similar to how we did last week. To cast a variable, so to turn, we know that get area is going to return a double, so we don't want it to stay a double when it divides by 9. We want it to turn into an integer, and we do that by casting it. And this is how we do it. We just put that in parentheses before the calculation. So now we can say return total toms, and that's going to return how many tomatoes can grow on that plot of land. Alright, so a main method that calls tomatoes on each of the 3 garden objects, calculating the total number of tomatoes that can grow on Wyatt's farm. Alright, so let's make sure that it's working before we do our finishing touches. So we're going to say garden 2 dot tomatoes. Alright, and this is going to return to an integer, so we'll say int tomatoes equals garden 2 dot tomatoes. And so now this integer variable tomatoes is going to carry how many tomatoes that we can grow on garden 2. So let's say we're going to print system.out.println, and we're going to say the total amount of tomatoes that can grow on garden 2 is, and we're going to return this variable that we just created, is plus tomatoes. Alright, let's see if it works. Alright, enter the width. We're going to do something easy, so we're going to say, 9 by 9, and what that tells us is the length of garden 2 is 9. total amount of tomatoes that can grow on garden 2 is 9, which is good. 9 times 9, 81, divided by 9 is 9. So that looks like everything's working well for us. The last couple things we're going to want to do is we want it to have 3 gardens. So we're going to, for practice, we're going to create 2 more gardens. So garden 3 equals new garden. And here we're going to say garden 3 dot set width, garden 3 dot set length. Alright, we don't really need this guy anymore. What we want to do is figure out how many tomatoes can grow on garden 2 or on garden 3 equals garden 3 dot tomatoes. We're going to call that method again. Let's say this is for garden 2, and let's say we're going to figure out how many tomatoes can grow in garden 1. Alright, so let's see here. So we got the total amount of tomatoes that can grow on garden 2 or garden 1 printed out. Let's print out how many can grow on garden 2. We're going to print out how many can grow on garden 3. And then what we're going to do finally is we'll calculate the average, or calculate the total amount of tomatoes that we can grow on the farm. So we'll say the total amount of tomatoes that grow on Wyatt's farm is we need to calculate the total, so we'll say int total times equals tomatoes 1 plus tomatoes 2 plus tomatoes 3. Alright, we're going to output that variable total times right here. We'll save it, we'll run it, and let's see what we got. Alright, so we know that garden 1 we already have being set with our constructor as a 10 by 9, so this is for garden 2. So we'll say this one is again the 9 by 9. I don't like the way it's prompted, but this is for garden 3. We'll say this one is huge. It's 100 by 900. Alright, so the total amount of tomatoes that can grow in garden 1 is 10. The total amount of tomatoes are 9. Total amount that can grow in garden 3 is 10,000. So together we can grow 10,019 tomatoes. Look at that. Alright guys, so again today what we looked at was using our scanner to read input variable from the user. We did that in our setter methods. We created 2 different types of constructors this week. One was a empty constructor and the other one was a set constructor that took in input variables. What we did there after that, we created objects, which is kind of the foundation of Java and programming. We did our getter and setter methods, and we practiced calling methods. I hope you guys learned a little bit more this week. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to next week. Hope to see you there.